This workshop will last 1.5 hours, and we'll email you the resources we talk about in this workshop and any relevant information. So watch out for that when it's all over. Right, over to you, Greg.
Thank you. Yeah, just really nice to see you all here. Just once again, thanks so much for, spending an hour and a half of us this Thursday morning. I'm Greg, and I too was sort of quite active in XR, quite passionate about that, but also drawn to the movement like a lot of people because of the like democratic thing that was part of that, that is part of that. And a lot of people were in that space who really cared about democracy, and then sort of came out and decided to make this course and try and support the like emergence of a kind of new democracy in this country. And I guess I just want to say first that we're all like volunteers here. Someone asked the other day, like, how much does all this cost? And it's like, there's no money involved. We just do this because we think it's important, and we're not like experts in it either. We've done quite a bit of work now. We've been here for sort of a year and a half, and we've done a lot of work and a lot of research and talking to people about what's needed and how do you do it. So it's not like slapdash, but we're not experts, and we're not here to be like, here's all the answers. And also, as the courses have gone on, this is the third time round we're running it. And as they've gone on, we've like learned so much from the people that have come through them. And that's really helped to like shape and build the course. So I just wanted to say sort of right at the off that you're all here to help us kind of all learn together how to do this stuff because it's new and weird. So yeah, right. But before we sort of give a bit more detailed information about what this course is, what this sort of movement is, what we're trying to do, I thought it might be nice to just start with like a check-in. So yeah, check-in is sort of, I don't know, you're probably familiar with it, but if you're not, it's just a moment to share sort of how you're doing, share your name, and if you've got like a preferred pronoun that you want to share sort of where you're coming from. And I guess the one question or the two questions we'd like you to think about for just a minute with each other is, what brought you to this course and what would you like to get out of it? So after you've done saying sort of how you're doing, maybe answer those two questions as well. What brought you to this course and what would you like to get out of it? So we're going to put you into breakout rooms for about 7 minutes, and hopefully you'll have about a minute and a half each. And if you could, it would be great to sort of have a rough eye on the clock so that everybody gets a chance to share how they're doing. And again, questions: what brought you to this course? What would you like to get out of it? So we're going to do that. Is that clear for everyone? Is that all right? Great. Mags, you all ready? Put them into some breakout rooms. All right, see you all soon. All right, welcome back, everyone. We've got a few more people still in their breakout rooms. I wanted to point out a kind of neat new Zoom thing. I don't know if any of you are sort of hard of hearing or don't have English as your first language, but there's now a sort of live transcript thing. It's the little button at the bottom that says CC. And I'm watching it as I speak, and it's really good. It's like doing a good job. So yeah, that's just for your information. All right. I think, is that everyone back now? Yeah, almost. All right, everyone, welcome back. I just wanted to point something out quickly that I just pointed out to the people who came here earlier. It's in case you're sort of hard of hearing or English isn't your first language, or you'd rather sort of read along. There's a cool kind of Zoom function that we've just discovered, which is live transcripts. So it's at the bottom, and it's just the thing that says CC, and you can just turn it on, and it's doing a really good job of typing out or sort of explaining what I'm saying. So yeah, if you need that, it's there. All right, I hope that was nice for you all to get to know each other. I think it's like part of this course is obviously learning some of the tools and some of the like attitudes that we're trying to, or that we think sort of will work. But the other part is kind of being in a community of people who want to do this stuff together. So yeah, there'll be lots of breakout rooms where you have a chance to meet people and share some stuff. That's a bit of a part of it. I wondered if anybody wanted to share anything that came up for them in their breakout room, either about, you know, who you are or what brought you to this course. I'd love to hear some of that. Oh, sorry, I didn't say. So if you want to speak, then you can put your finger up. Oh, well, Elena said this earlier, but also maybe type in the chat stack, because there's quite a few of us and I can't see everyone at once. Valerie Knight, let's hear from you. Oh, you're on mute. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Just one thing that came up in my meeting with the lady in my chat room was she's got some disability, and we were talking about visiting, going up to the climate change meeting that's in Scotland at the end of the year. And I was just wondering how we deal with people who've got disabilities and make sure we can facilitate them joining in as much as anybody else if they need special facilities.
So it's like, that's kind of what do you want to get out of this course type thing, thinking about how to make it inclusive to people.
Yes, yeah.
Great, thanks Valerie, thanks for sharing that. Has anybody else got any? I'm looking for Zoe.
Hi, good morning, everyone. The breakout group is really interesting. So I'm running an art space, and then breakout group, other person, Jules, she's in Croydon, and she is an art teacher and artist. And then we got a community member, which is Steph. So we talk about how fantastic like arts and gardening and all these activities can motivate the community, and then they're addressing some bigger issues as well. So so yeah, just by chance, and it's really fantastic. So
that's great, cool. And what and did you share anything about what brought you here, or what you wanted to get out of the course?
Yeah, I think it's just like it's about community actions, and it's about how we can working together with the community and to address some bigger issues that we can't do it ourselves. So that's really quite important.
Great.
We'll talk about permaculture, talk about climate change, and these are really, really important issues, and how can we kind of do it together.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, well, I'm so glad you're here, because that sort of that question around like how to bring people together in like a fun kind of creative way as well, that kind of like artistic element that you might be able to bring, that's really, really important. Should we take one more and then I'll pass back to you, Elena? Has anybody else got anything they wanted to share from their breakout group?
Joseph in the chat.
Yeah, Joseph.
Yeah, morning everyone. I was just saying that I was at a deep adaptation webinar yesterday afternoon. So this is kind of like a bit of a juxtaposition between that kind of emotional work, which is probably the space I'm in at the moment, is kind of around trying to find some acceptance of what is coming in terms of civilizational collapse. But actually I was then reflecting that I think whatever emerges on the other side of that, we're going to need lots of these skills around proper democracy. And so that's one of the reasons it brings me here. It's kind of like, whether I'm part of that or not, these are skills that we need to pass on and learn and pass on to future generations as well.
Yeah, thank you so much, Joseph. I hear what you're saying about that maybe that emotional state being a bit different, but we are also thinking a lot about ourselves and like what we're bringing to this work. I'll explain a bit more about that in a minute, but yeah, I think you're in the right place. Welcome, thanks for sharing. Elena, I'm going to pass back to you.
Great. So we're going to give you a little bit of a context about TTP now. So what actually brought us here? So the little seed from which Trust the People grew was planted at the end of 2019. And the seed came into existence because of frustration, desperation, an awareness that our democracy is in crisis, our political system is broken, our society is hugely unequal, and we are tied into a system that makes us complicit in the exploitation of people and planet. So despite being one of the richest countries in the world, over 1/5 of the population live in poverty. And this in the country has seen the number of billionaires almost double in the past 10 years. So we're now heading for a big economic fallout from COVID-19. And of course, COVID-19 can be linked to the climate crisis as well. And inequality and poverty can only get worse. So this is the kind of result really of not just the pandemic and the climate crisis and the ecological crisis. Government austerity policies for the last 10 years have also been hitting people really badly. So just everywhere you look, there are signs that this society is in great trouble. We're blighted by systemic oppression, whether it's something that hits the headlines and galvanizes people for a time, like Black Lives Matter, mobilizing against racism. A few years earlier, it was the Me Too movement against institutionalized male power in the business world. So we are set up to be divided by many different kinds of oppressions. And just because one doesn't hit the headlines doesn't mean the others aren't actually operating. So we have massive challenges to contend with. And countless government reports, kind of show the sorry state of our societies, and yet nothing or little is done. Oppression persists, robbing people of a fair chance at life. And climate change, the biggest existential threat to humanity. There's so much inaction from government around that, despite declaring a climate and ecological emergency in May 2019, despite the fact that 85% of people in this country surveyed at that time said that they were really worried about the climate crisis. Very, very little has been done. And now we've got COVID. So wealth and power is concentrated in the hands of the few, and carbon intensive industries, have so much political influence that they actively prevent our government from responding to the climate and ecological crisis. So while this inaction is happening, our news is full about the impact of this on events globally. Ice caps are melting, fires in the Amazon, fires in Australia, California, even here, record-breaking hot summer days, and the ice is melting, the tundras are unfreezing. So despite all of this gloom, we have got together because we actually believe that something better is possible and that we, the people, need to galvanize one another. So over to you, Greg.
Yeah, thanks. Just want to take a moment to be like, to sort of like, yeah, that was a lot, Elena. And yeah, and it's sad and hard to deal with, and like can feel quite overwhelming. And yeah, the pandemic is has changed all of our lives quite a lot. And I see a lot of people around me sort of, just struggling, feeling isolated and lonely and unable to do the things that they were doing to try and like help the world. And it's a really hard time, and don't want to sort of just like wash over that. But you're right to say that like we are all here and we've been sort of supporting each other because we also share a vision of how things could be different. And there's a lot of material out there, or a lot of sort of evidence that proves that things can be different, and that things are sort of like shifting in little ways all over the place. The big thing for me, the like huge sort of inspiration, and actually one of the things that made us start this course and try and start this movement, was the thousands of people that signed up to do COVID mutual aid. So thousands of people like volunteered to help the NHS, etc. But even more people joined like local mutual aid groups. There was something like 6,000 set up in the UK the last time I checked. Mutual aid being this kind of like fringe anarchist concept just suddenly becomes mainstream and everybody's doing it. And there's, yeah, and when you start kind of looking, you can see that human kindness and collaboration is actually everywhere. People are doing it all the time. People are like looking after each other all the time, despite all of these like big systemic problems. So there's lots to be hopeful about, and there's lots that have kind of inspired us. There's obviously all of these community groups doing stuff in the UK. There's the transition town movement that's been working to make towns more kind of resilient to the changing world. There's groups in the UK that are kind of reclaiming local politics and their local councils. So the sort of flat pack democracy movement's been a big inspiration. There's obviously the huge like mobilization of people trying to tackle racial injustice, the Black Lives Matter movement last summer, like an incredible, like, you know, an incredibly sort of like confronting thing, like you had like force all of these questions on all of us, but a really hopeful thing as well, that such a thing can have such like wide reaching impacts. And then around the world as well, we've been kind of drawing inspiration from a lot of really inspiring democratic revolutions, you can call them. So in Spain, there's been this kind of municipalist movement of people reclaiming like cities and building people's platforms to shape the policies of cities. So Barcelona has done that really amazingly, using, you know, people's assemblies and other kind of forms like that. And you've got people in sort of North America, a movement called Cooperation Jackson, which is all about building a new sort of more direct, deliberative form of democracy. You've got the Kurds in northern Syria, you've got hip hop collectives in Senegal, you've got this like real global thing kind of happening, which we kind of feel ourselves to be a part of. Yeah, so that's sort of what I'm here a little bit to say, is that change is here, and there's lots of tools and kind of wisdom and practices, and also lots of people already doing it that just need just need help finding each other and learning from each other. So that's a little bit what we're about as well. It's not so much like we need to be the new thing on the block, we need to like be the Trust the People movement, but it's more like, what can we do to support all of this stuff that's probably happening where you live, probably you're a bit involved in it. Yeah, so that's what we're about. Sorry, I got a bit carried away there. Elena, back to you.
Yes, so we'd like to tell you what we want to get out of this course as well, because obviously we've set it up and it's obviously enthused you enough to be here with us today. So to put it very briefly, we want to help facilitate a democratic revolution. So that might sound very strong, but actually we do need a revolution. We need a thorough transformation of the way things work in our society. And you may not like the word revolution, but there are other different ways of expressing this transformation. So we want to help build a genuine democracy in which people can have a voice, be heard, where we can deliberate rather than just vote on things without any discussion of the substance of the matter. We would like more people's assemblies, to have them in common place. So localities, neighborhoods, people can come together to step into their power and work collaboratively, so that we have a society that reflects what we want, and reflecting that we can live in harmony with one another, and that humans are able to thrive on this planet and not be exploited. So we want to help build a society that we can be proud of. And so this is what this course is about. It's about giving you and us, because we're practicing in this process ourselves as well, the tools to start democratic hubs within our communities. It's about supporting grassroots democracy and helping it grow, as we believe that grassroots democracy can change communities, can change councils, towns, cities, counties, and ultimately the country, and ultimately even beyond that, part of a global revolution.
Yes, Elena. So before we we're going to pass over to you in a little while to just ask what you, again, sort of what you want to get out of the course. And we thought it would be good if we set sort of like intentions for ourselves to just to just have a think about why we're here. But before we do that, I'm going to give you a little bit more detail about what the actual course is, so that you know what to expect over the next 7 or so weeks, and you know sort of like how to participate, I guess. So there are the course is built on kind of 5 core modules, and for each of these modules there are lots of resources and things that can help sort of online, and there's one core workshop for each of them. So we'll repeat this workshop, the same workshop, twice a week, and you've only got to come to one of them because they're the same. And the times are on Monday from 6 to 8 p.m. and Thursday 10 to 12. So we ran this same session that we're doing today on Monday. At the same time, there's going to be lots of other kind of supplementary workshops, and it will be clear like what those are in the email schedule that you, I think, have already got. And you can obviously attend those, and they will sort of inform like different aspects of the module, if that makes sense. But we sort of say that like the core workshop is like a sort of foundation of it. So if you can, then come into one of those is sort of recommended. So I'll run through the 5 modules really quickly, and they're week by week, right? So we start next week kind of thinking about ourselves. So this is a little bit what I was thinking about with what Joseph brought for why he's here, because this is really about thinking, it's really about not being able to sort of connect with other people before we can connect with ourselves. So we need to think about our sort of identity, our relationship to society, some sort of like biases that we might hold, and just kind of raising our self-awareness to help us sort of interact with others. It's about kind of understanding our story, like what's our story, what's brought us here, and taking the time to think about our needs and building up courage and confidence that's needed to do this work, because it's it's at the same time like quite simple, but it's also obviously really like big and tricky. So thinking about ourselves, that's where we're going to start next week. And the week after that, we're going to start thinking about looking outwards, I guess. So the module is called Engaging Communities, and this is about how do we reach out to others and form relationships founded on trust. So it's got a bunch of ideas about how to create kind of good, meaningful connections, and especially across lots of social divides. So this is like one of the big challenges as I see it. How do we get to know people who like have totally different backgrounds to us? How do we dodge that trap of just being that like the usual suspects? So that's a really sort of important module. And the next one is I guess once you've sort of thought about yourself and once you've started to look outwards, this is about forming a crew of people who you might want to do this work with where you live. So the module is called Group Support, and it's about how we can sort of create or participate in groups that work well together. So I guess the thing that might already sort of be obvious to you, but is that in our culture and our society, we don't have a load of tools for working in groups. We don't really have a good culture of working in groups that aren't like hierarchical sort of institutions. So this module really is about trying to relearn some of that stuff. Like, how do we work together? How do we work through conflict? How do we care for one another? How do we hold difference in the same space? How do we make decisions together? These kinds of things. So that's 3. 4 is kind of like, I think of it like the heart of of the whole thing, because it's about assemblies.
Okay.
Oh, Sally, would you mind muting yourself?
I haven't. I will get back to you. I'm actually in a meeting.
So module 4 is about, it's about assemblies. I don't know if any of you, I don't know how familiar you are with assemblies, so I'll just imagine that you're not at all. The People's Assembly is a kind of model that's been used in lots of big direct action movements. It's been used in lots of social movements. And we've got a version of it that has had a lot of research taken from the sort of Spanish municipalists and other movements that are trying this stuff out. And it's basically getting a bunch of people together, making sure everybody's heard, and a way of making decisions together in a big group, without sort of endlessly going around in circles, and without it being dominated by a particular group of people. So this is the key, as we see it, or the heart for this transformation that we need. But more on that in that week, which is week 4. The last module is called community organizing, and this is what are we going to do with all of this stuff that we've just learned? We've been running our assemblies, we've got all of these people involved, what's possible? So this module, and also the week after, are really about bringing in kind of examples of things that are already going on in the UK, and there's loads going on, it's a bit overwhelming, but community projects and different sort of tools and techniques for reclaiming local power. So in both of those weeks we'll hear from lots of people who've been doing this a long time, and hopefully just spark a bit of inspiration. I think that's the purpose of that. So those are the 5 modules, and that's just a bit of an overview. Right, back to you, Elena.
Thanks, Greg. Right, so you might be thinking, what is my vision? You might have one already. Well, we're going to go through something now to help you create one if you haven't got one, because it's just so easy to be overwhelmed by all the bad things that are happening in this world. And yet having our own personal vision and coming back to it repeatedly, building on it, developing it in some way, is one of the things that will actually sustain us in the years ahead. So, so this course is also about helping you connect with what you actually want from your community. So that's kind of bringing it a bit nearer home, and supporting you to take steps into that action. But we will start with inviting you to kind of think big. And so we're going to do a short visioning exercise now, so that you can engage with your imaginations. If we can dream, we can hope, and then we can start to build, even if there are times when it feels impossible. So I'm going to invite you to close your eyes. Close your eyes and imagine we have successfully worked together to overcome the crises we are facing, or at least take some steps to overcome them. The evidence is there. We are in that process. Now think big. This is your mind and your vision, and there is no wrong answer. You might choose something tangible, like having people's assemblies held every month on your street, or it might be more general, like unity across factions in society. So you can zoom out and you can zoom in to have some detail, but do think big. Think big, think about what you would like to have for the world and your society. So we're on the way to achieving it. So 1 year from now, what are the differences that you are noticing? What are the power structures like? What has your response to COVID been? What has been our response to climate crisis? How do these show in society? What is your average day like now? What communities are you part of? So quite a few questions there for you to consider. And we'll give you a minute on a timer to carry on thinking about that vision a year from now. And then at the end of a minute, keep your eyes closed and I'll draw you back to the next stage. So this is what we've achieved in 1 year. Now in your mind, I'd like you to go out to 5 years' time. Go even bigger. This is the ideal. What will we have achieved in 5 years' time? What do we have in place? Is our society organized along different principles? What is our relationship to nature like? What is our relationship? What are our relationships with each other like? So I'll give you another minute. Okay, and the last one. This is the chance for you to live that utopia in your head 25 years from now. And it's really important that we have a vision for the future, for the generations that come after us, that we leave a good legacy. A vision that may well extend beyond our own lifetimes. So 25 years from now, what is society like? What is the air like? How many trees are there? What is our relationship to food and water? And how do we celebrate the fact that we've responded so well to the various crises that we as humanity brought upon ourselves? What have we succeeded in achieving that we can be proud of? So another minute for you to carry on without thinking. Thank you. Do come back out of your vision and join us again. We're going to put you into breakout groups of 3 or 4 people now for 10 minutes so that you can share these visions that you've imagined and be inspired by each other and give each other different ideas for the future that we can aim for. So there will be 10 minutes. So if someone can time so that you have approximately the same time to share with each other. And then when we come back, we'll invite some of you to kind of share your visions with the rest of us. Great, are we all back? Okay, would a couple of you like to share what you imagined in your visions with the rest of us? So Jane's got her finger up and I can't see anybody else yet. So let's start with you, Jane.
Yeah, I would like in the future that there would be no central governments, that they'd all gone and all the money we wasted on paying their wages would be invested in the country, that there would be no more poverty, that all public transport would be free. That would solve a lot of things and it would all be electric. I think that would pretty much solve everything, actually. It's quite simple, really. That's me.
Thanks, Jane. I think there'll be a lot of agreement there with you. Anybody else who's got a slightly different vision? Or a very different vision?
Should I just go ahead? Is there anyone else?
Let me see. Who
Cordelia.
are you? Could you just say who? Cordelia, go ahead, Cordelia. I can't see you,
okay.
Go ahead.
It's similar, but I guess, I mean, I live on a little piece of land just outside Frome and we have a market garden and produce food. And what I'd like to see is every town producing as much as it can through agroecological methods as close as possible to the town, and it would provide affordable housing, good employment, healthy products and food, and a really, really amazingly good lifestyle. And I mean, we've found with the lockdown, I got to say, I feel like I'm probably one of the luckiest people in the entire world because I can still keep doing what I'm doing. Loads of people want it. There's loads of people around outside, no risk. So it's been absolutely amazing. And in that, for us to see how well that worked within the pandemic and the impact it would have on the pandemic if you had lots and lots of people living like that is it just wouldn't travel much. Anyway, I'll stop, let someone else talk.
Yeah, one more person then.
I think Sarah was just in there first and then maybe Valerie after.
Thanks, Max. So Sarah, and then we'll do you, Valerie, then.
Okay, I just want to say how incredibly powerful envisaging a future was. I hadn't realised. It made me cry. My daughter came in and found me crying. But as someone said, you know, we're always given these dystopian visions that we're discussing in our group, and how powerful it is to actually think about a future that could be. And yeah, it was definitely, we had various things, more vegetation, more sustainable transport. I was saying revamped totally education, obviously no poverty, no, you know, elderly people looked after properly and included in the community, and disabled people similarly. And and meaningful jobs, and yeah, and get rid of that Parliament business that we have. Yeah, that was all I wanted to say, but just how powerful it was, that was amazing. So thank you for that.
No, wonderful to hear that, Sarah. Thank you. And so Valerie, that'll be the last one now because we'll have to move on. But Valerie, go ahead.
Our little group started right at the very bottom of the ideas, as in what we could achieve in the next year. And one of the discussions we had was around every street becoming a little community in its own right, or at least streets with domestic houses in them at least, so that we get to know the people in our streets, so that we understand that we have more strength when we're together than when we're separated, all sitting in our little rooms watching the television, and that we should develop some inclusiveness in our streets and make sure that we make sure that everybody is capable of being involved. So even if they're disabled or whether they've got different customs or whatever, they are feeling that they can become involved and that it's a safe space. And the whole idea of this to be building up trust between people, to get people to feel that they can talk to each other and it won't become a party political fight or whatever, but that we can just learn about each other's lived experience and get some ideas from each other about why we think the way we do. So it was right at the very, very bottom of the pile, really, of how you get that trust between people, which is, I think the word trust is really important. At the moment, the trust between human beings has been so badly damaged, probably deliberately by many sectors. And I think rebuilding that trust and belief that we have strength in our cooperativeness and our groups is a really important beginning point for doing what you want to do.
Thank you, Valerie. That's great. And of course, that's what we will be addressing here. So I do invite you and your group to extend your visions even further, because they are nourishing, even though we have to start right where we find ourselves.
Elena?
Yeah.
Could I, there was a bit of confusion and there were a couple of Sarahs that wanted to share. Would you mind if we just heard one more from the other Sarah?
Yeah, sure.
Great.
Yeah, I'm afraid my closed captions are interfering across people, so I can't see. So thanks for the help.
Right. Thanks, Greg.
Sarah.
Hey, just wanted to say, like my vision experience was like quite different, so I wanted to share it. Just wanted to say that, like, in the context of COVID and all of the kind of shit we're in right now, like mentally, emotionally, etc., I found it quite difficult to actually even envision in like next year what that's going to look like, what it's going to look like in 5 years, in 25 years. I found that quite difficult, so I just wanted to voice that. And I think, like, I heard a lot of people talk about you know, they're wondering why their communities aren't engaging, and it's like, because we're all trying to like just stay afloat. And I just wanted to really voice that, because that's the soup we're kind of all swimming in a way. And that doesn't mean that we don't need to take action, but I just wanted to like be like, okay, like, how do we do that and be mindful of all of the trauma that's happening right now in like all sorts of ways. So yeah, just wanted to voice that.
Thank you so much for that. We need to face the reality that we're in, even while we vision for a better future as well. You're absolutely right. Thank you. Okay, so we're now going to have a little break for you to have stretch your legs, make a drink, whatever you want to do. 3-minute break now. See you back after 3 minutes.
Actually, so this is the bit where we're nearly at the end. We've got sort of a bit over 10 minutes left with each other. And yeah, just like to end by setting some sort of, you could, you know, call them intentions if you're a bit of a hippie, or just call them like things you want to get out of the next 8 weeks. Yeah, and it's just to something to hold on to, I guess, and to sort of like give you a bit of direction as you're going through it. But yeah, before we do that, I want to show you a bit of a clip of a video, which is going to be like super embarrassing for Mags because she's here right now. Mags, will you make me a host? Is that okay? Great, thanks. Oh no, oh yeah. What's the best way to do this? So yeah, so this is just a little bit of inspiration from Mags, and yeah, some of the amazing work she's been doing. So I will share it with you. And I don't know if it's doing.
Hi, my name is Mags and I help out with Trust the People. I've also been putting Trust the People into practice in my own neighbourhood and would like to share with you a little bit about what that's been like. And funnily enough, I just finished facilitating a community assembly for my local area for residents to come together. And I'll just share with you some of the feedback, because I have to say, it's blown me away how people love democracy. We are so starved of it that when people experience it and they come together and they listen to each other and they hear new information and then they go into little groups and go, what did you think about that? Where could we take this next? Like, how could this change our neighbourhood for the better? People are buzzing, like literally, listen to this. Super energized by that community assembly. So many new ideas, buzzing. It was amazing, wasn't it? Another reminder that magic can happen when people get together. Yeah, and people are enjoying the experience of it so much, and the ideas that come out of it, like, there's such a thing as the hive mind, and in our individualized, atomized society where we're just, little units just consuming blindly, like, we forget what happens in the spaces between us. Like, if there's a group of people who all care about something, who care about their neighborhood and come together to decide, okay, well, what are we all going to do to about this particular issue? Yeah, literally magic does happen. So,
woo! Thanks, Mags. Sorry for embarrassing you. Yeah, so I guess the prompt is with that, in mind, and other things that we've talked about, just take a minute to have a think about what it is you want to get out of the course. So you might think about the modules that we went through earlier, or some of the stories that you've heard from each other, something that appeared in your vision, wherever it is. Yeah, maybe try and set a goal for yourself. I'll give you 2 minutes to do that now, or maybe I'll actually probably just give you a minute because we're running low on time. Maybe you want to, just have a little think. Right, and now I just want to invite you all to finish a sentence that starts with the phrase, by the end of this course, I will have. And yeah, you can type it up if you want to. If you want to share it in the chat, you're very welcome to But yeah, this is just a little note to yourself, to your future self. By the end of the course, I will have. Oh, these are so good. Thanks, everyone. Amazing. All right. So yeah, as I said, we've got a core workshop each week, and there's a lot of resources. I guess we might have a problem of choosing between all the stuff because there's so much like good knowledge out there. So I guess I just wanted to say the resources, especially, there might be kind of a lot of material that might seem a bit overwhelming, and just choose what feels like important and what you feel like you might need right now, and don't worry like about needing to, you know, read through everything or learn everything. Yeah. And I guess the last thing I want to mention before I pass to you, Elena, is so as I said, like, we are running this course, but we don't sort of just want to be another course that you do and then you sort of like forget about it or something. We're trying to create a bit of a community of community transformers, really. So there are different ways that we're thinking about trying to do this. One of the like really key things is creating little sort of support groups, sort of, I guess, groups of maybe like 8 to 10 of you all, if you want to join them. And those are groups that can just check in with each other and share like what's going well and what's not going well. And we're calling them hives. So if you hear that like referred to, that's what we're talking about. And they're a bit like affinity groups. Yeah, and they're also ways for people to connect more locally. So yeah, there will be more information about those coming out and how to get into one if you want to, but that's just a little primer. All right. Elena, I'm going to pass to you now.
Thanks, Greg. So this is the end of our introductory session, and we'd like to say a really big thank you for coming here and being with us and being together today, and for signing up to this course. Now, things can be really difficult, and they're incredibly difficult for a lot of people, and I think we can actually even expect that some things might get even worse before we can actually make things better. And it's not a contradiction to say that we need to share our pain and release our pain in order to recover from it. But the other thing that goes hand in hand with that is cultivating optimism in ourselves, and that collectively together can be very, very powerful. So I'd just like to end today with a quote from a book, The Future We Choose, by Christiana Figueres and Tom Rivett-Carnac, about the importance of remaining optimistic and nurturing it, even when things feel bleak, even when we are feeling a lot of pain. Optimism empowers you. It drives your desire to engage, to contribute, to make a difference. It makes you jump out of bed in the morning because you feel challenged and hopeful at the same time. It calls to that which is emerging and makes you want to be an active part of change. Rebecca Solnit puts it well. Hope is an axe you break down doors with in an emergency. Hope should shove you out of the door because it will take everything you have to steer the future away from endless war, from annihilation of the earth's treasures and the grinding down of the poor and the marginal. To hope is to give yourself to the future, and that commitment to the future makes the present inhabitable. And the other thing that we must remember in all of this is that we have each other. So to close this introductory session, I'd like you to unmute, and we're all going to have 30 seconds of shouting, "Hope is our axe," together.
Hope is our axe.
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 So see you next week on the first module, everybody, and anything else that you want to join, you'll get lots of information in an email coming to you very soon. Thank you so much for being here.
Bye-bye.
Bye.